day, everyone. This is Mark Schultz here with Digital Aircraft, and I'm coming to you live today. This is our very first broadcast of the year, and we're very excited to come into another year of promoting digital transformation, recovery in aviation. And I have so many guests lined up this year to be able to bring you valuable strategies and tactics to be able to be successful, in your business. And over the month of January, we're going to be focusing on digital transformation. We're going to be focusing on different companies and featuring what they're doing to be successful in this economy and how we're helping different companies to be successful in the implementation of digital transformation and interesting things like sustainability and a lot of really interesting topics. But today, I have some guests with me from a company called StorkJet, and they're experts in the area of digital and applying it toward efficiency within the aviation industry. Stick with me. You are not going to want to miss. Gentlemen, welcome to our first show of the year. Very excited to have with me Peter and Emil. Peter, welcome. How are you today?
Hello. I would say very well. We are just after the holiday period full of energy. So, yeah.
Excellent. And for our viewers out there today, tell us where you're coming from today.
We are from Europe, from Poland, exactly from a city called Katowice.
Excellent. Very much. Thank you. I just really appreciate you joining me today, in this conversation. Hey, just for a really quick minute, why don't you tell us who you are and what do you do for the viewers that are out there today?
Yeah, sure. So as a company, we help airlines save fuel and reduce CO2 emissions. And we do it by analyzing their data with artificial intelligence. Thanks to that, we give recommendations to the airlines. And based on that, they can fly more efficiently.
Yeah, and with the demands that we have in the industry today with rising fuel prices and all the changes that we have with digital and the advancements, I'm really excited to be able to talk about that today. Emil, I understand that you're also, into digital and you're a data scientist. Can you tell us who you are and what do you do, Emil?
Yeah. So I'm Emil Kaptur. I'm experimental physicist, and with data science and artificial intelligence, I worked from the beginning of my career. And at StorkJet, what me and my department do is we take the big data from the flight data, quick access recorders, and so on, and transform it into actionable insights about fuel efficiency.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big challenges that we have, every day is that we have so much data all around us. And the big challenges we have is how do we actually consume that information and do something with it or take action or do something to create, change, in our businesses. So it's going to be an exciting conversation. Gentlemen, it's going to be really good to be able to talk to you today about this. Hey, before we get started, I always like to invite our guests that are watching. This is live, and everybody that's out there today needs to know that you can ask questions. But I also would like to ask you to please share this stream. If you share this stream, it helps us get the word out to other people that are watching, and it really helps us to be able to make improvements in the industry and get the knowledge of these valuable people that we bring to this program, out. So if you could please share. And then also, you'll notice down in the bottom of your screen, there is an opportunity to comment. Now, in that comment box, I'm actually on my screen right in front of me watching, and we will be able to take your questions live, and we'll try to answer your questions live during this live broadcast. So just keep that in mind. So listen, as we're going forward here, I wanted to just reach out to the people that are watching. One of the exciting things, Peter and Emil, one of the exciting things is that these broadcasts that we do are seen by people all around the world. Listen, I'm in sunny Florida today, and, you're in Poland, and I frequently have people all over, Europe and North America and South America, sometimes in Africa and in Asia Pacific watching these broadcasts. And so one of the things I like to do is ask people that if you're watching, just give us a comment in the box right now. Do it. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us who you are and where you're watching from. And we'll give you a shout out on the screen in front of us here. And we'll let people know where you're watching from. So as you're watching the broadcast, just let us know where you're coming to us from. And then as we go through the broadcast, if you have questions, just put them in the box, and we'll see if we can get Peter and Emil to answer any questions that you might have about digital or about fuel or about the industry and different things like that, exciting things like that. So just give us a shout out and put your name and where you're from in the comment box. Hey, let's get this started, gentlemen. I want to start out by just having a little bit of a conversation about, your company and current events and things that are happening. We know that the aviation industry is challenged right now from a lot of different reasons, right now, but definitely we're seeing some key problems that are surfacing in the industry today, not to mention finance and supply chain and fuel prices and things like that. But what are some of the problems that you're seeing, emerging right now in the industry today?
So basically, I think that the biggest and the general problem that is that fuel is the biggest airline cost, and they need to optimize it to be competitive. For example, airlines very often work on very low margins. So very often, if we reduce fuel consumption by 2 or 3%, it can decide about airlines' profitability. And from the environmental perspective, if we reduce CO2, if we reduce fuel consumption, we also reduce CO2 emissions. So with that, we help aviation to be more sustainable and to reduce this aviation footprint on the environment.
Yeah, those are really key aspects of of being successful today is, reducing cost and taking a look at where we can do that. Boy, fuel prices have really gone up. What are the current fuel prices out there today? Do you know what the going rates are around the world today?
So it depends from country to country, but it is around $750 per 1 ton of fuel.
Yeah, it's just incredible on how much the prices have gone up. Hey, it's interesting that when the prices are down, people sort of start forgetting about being more fuel efficient. And then when the prices go up, people pay more attention to it, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And what is also curious is, for example, that in some regions, for example, in Europe, besides paying for fuel, you also need to pay for CO2 emissions, right? So these costs are even higher.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, I see we start having some people that are joining the broadcast, and I always like acknowledging people. Dr. Davies, he was actually on one of my broadcasts last year. He's in the UK. And thanks for joining us today, Doctor. It was really good. And I want to encourage others of you that are out there that if you're watching, just drop your name and where you're watching from in the box, and we'll acknowledge you as well. Hey, Peter, tell us a little bit about the company StorkJet. Why was it formed? What's really the mission and goal and objective of StorkJet?
So basically, we started as a university project, and we have created a tool to process the data from the black boxes. And if we had this data in a nice, readable form, we saw plenty areas for optimization. And that is how StorkJet has been created. And the mission that we have is we believe that each airline deserves a solid fuel efficiency program. And we also know that this is a very challenging process and time-consuming. So our mission is to help airlines to be more sustainable, more fuel efficient.
Yeah, I think that's just such a great, mission and objective, because not only from a finance perspective, but also from a responsibility standpoint, from financial responsibility and also sustainability, that's really a great goal and objective. Hey, StorkJet, why is it called StorkJet? That seems like an odd name. Why would you call a company StorkJet?
Yeah, we thought long about the company name, but finally we decided to put Stork, as Stork is one of the most efficient bird when it comes to flight efficiency, and the most population of stork lives in Poland, where we are based. So we thought that this is a nice combination of what we do and from where we are based.
All right, excellent. So based on efficiency and I guess popularity or population, I guess, that's very good. Very interesting. Hey, listen, gentlemen, I wanted to jump in and ask you a few questions about, this topic of fuel efficiency and then sustainability and about big data. Because like I said before, we're all about, using what's happening in the world today, to be able to leverage and improve the industry. Now, there's people that watch this program all the time that are interested in strategies and tactics on how they can be successful, all right? Now, just really quickly, before we get into talking about fuel and fuel efficiency, just tell me a little bit more about why it's important for people. What's the strategy or tactic that needs to be taken today, in order to be able to be more successful in the industry? Why is fuel one of those places that an operator should be looking at more closely?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that to be successful in the industry, first of all, you need to believe in what you do. You need to believe really in your product. And answering the second question, why we do it, as we mentioned before, fuel is the biggest airline cost. We see that right now during COVID or at first fuel prices went down, but right now they are increasing rapidly. So there is more and more demand on the market to be more eco, to save fuel, to increase the airlines' profits. So we also see that airlines are more and more involved in this process. More and more big operators also are looking for fuel efficiency solutions as we do. So that is why we think that this is really a great time for fuel optimization.
Okay. Well, so I've been a pilot for many years. I started flying when I was 15 years old. Okay, and I had to create a flight plan. I had to calculate my time, speed, distance, and how much fuel I put in my airplane. I went out there and just put the fuel in the airplane and I flew. Okay, it's not so simple anymore, is it? Right? Where does somebody start? Where do they even start in trying to assess fuel efficiency in a complex operation?
So you started to talk about how much fuel you put into the aircraft. And this is an area we find that is quite easily optimized. And the airlines can do a lot by their own. But of course, good fuel efficiency environment helps them to see where the savings are. And for example, looking at contingency fuel, are you using statistical contingency fuel? Are you using 5% or 3% contingency? And this may be a small amount of fuel you take additionally on board, but flying for a long time or having a lot of operation, this adds up and quickly become quite a large cost. Also looking at discretionary fuel the pilots take on board. This is good to monitor because if pilots don't have really confidence in the flight plan, if they see that they have overburns, for example, they will take more discretionary fuel even if it's not needed. And this will also drive up the fuel consumption and costs.
Okay, well, Emil, how do you manage such complex factors? I mean, so you just mentioned 2 or 3 factors. You mentioned, total fuel, contingency fuel, different things like that. I mean, I know that from my experience in the industry, people look at fuel savings from single engine taxi or top of descent or arrival fuel or things like that. I mean, there must be a lot of different factors that you're considering when you're looking at fuel efficiency, right?
So basically IATA have 44 initiatives written down where the fuel can be saved. And all of them are important. So, and sometimes the most important initiative is the one we don't think about, because if we don't think about it, we don't do much about it. So in this way, what we found out that people really focusing on single engine taxi, because they think, okay, I will taxi on single engine, I will save half of the fuel, of the fuel consumption, which isn't really true actually. And they don't look at the simple things. How much contingency fuel we take, or if my pilots doesn't take 1 ton of discretionary fuel for every flight. So it's important to look at the whole picture and the whole fuel efficiency landscape.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. When we look at newer aircraft, for example, like the 787, when it was, released just a few years ago, I was very, very impressed with how much improvement there was in fuel efficiency. And then when we look at older aircraft, like, for example, the A330, A340, they were much less efficient, the 4-engine and 2-engine aircraft. Now, tell me, how important is it to be looking at fuel efficiency factors, even though we have newer, more fuel efficient aircraft versus the older, aircraft?
So here, not only fuel efficiency is important, but also aircraft performance and monitoring what is the current performance of your aircraft, even if this is very new aircraft. So what we found out, for example, that some of the new engines deteriorate quite quickly. So, and at the entry into service, they burn quite not a lot of fuel, and they are really fuel efficient, but they deteriorate very quickly, and the advantage goes down over the older engines. So, of course, for the old aircrafts, every mistake costs more because they burn more. But for the new aircraft, it's also important to monitor the fuel consumption.
So let's talk for a minute about the factors that affect your analysis that you do. Now, I know that in the industry there's been a tremendous increase in the amount of digital and digital transformation that we have, and our ability to be able to consume more data. All right, so the 787 has a tremendous amount of data, and engines have a tremendous amount of data. Now, Emil, how does that affect our ability to be able to do fuel efficiency analysis today?
So for airlines, it's very difficult. Usually the IT departments of airlines are understaffed, and the task is really huge. Yeah? Amount of data, even from one flight of 787, is just huge to analyze. We, as a company which specialize in analyzing such data, can have all the resources we need to do so, and also experts in field of data analysis, data processing, and so on. So it's easier for us to do so. But even airlines can do stuff with the data they have. We know that some airlines have their own machine learning departments, which try to predict what will be the fuel use given different scenarios. So I think all of this going into new areas of analysis and of data is important for airlines as well.
Yeah, Emil, let me ask you this question. I know that we have information coming off of the airplane. I know that we have operational considerations. How do we operate the aircraft? How do we plan? How do we fly? We have air traffic control considerations. All those factors, create a very complex model. I mean, how do you go about sorting out, optimization of such a complex situation? Does data help you to do that today?
Yeah, so especially connection between data and the artificial intelligence or machine learning, which is also quite popular right now. Then you don't have to spend really a lot of time building these physics models. And as a physicist, I know this is difficult. You just put a lot of data and some insight as well into it, and you get really good predictions of what would happen if something changes. Yeah, if pilot would fly a flight level higher, yeah, for example, and you will be able to know how much you can save really on this particular aircraft and on this particular route.
So, Emil, if I'm an airline or if I'm an operator, I'm just trying to figure out where to start. And I know that some operators have very mature programs, and some are, just starting down a journey to try to create more efficiency. Where do I start? Do I start looking at my operations? Do I look at my flight planning? Do I look at my where do I even start? How do I do this?
So I think it's always good to start looking at the fuel policies you have, how much fuel you take on board, because then you don't have to analyze lots of data. You basically analyze only the flight plans you have, and you can get some insights from it. And this is also easy to correct relatively. So this is a good place to start. And then you can go anywhere. Yeah? You can try to optimize flight speeds better than the manufacturers of the aircraft do. You can try to analyze single engine taxi. This is also an important area of optimizations. Yeah.
Okay, so we start looking at our policies or our practices, and we start identifying certain areas where we might be able to create some optimization. How does the availability of data help me to pinpoint where those changes need to be made?
So, for example, if you're interested in single engine taxi, just look how much fuel was burned during taxi on one particular aircraft during dual engine operations and single engine operations. You can take the difference of these two averages over lots of flights, and you will know how much you could save. This will be not very precise, of course. Yeah, you will probably have error of 50% or something, but you will know at least something. Yeah, and without data, you hear a lot of claims. Yeah, do single engine taxi, you will save a lot of fuel. But this may be not true. Yeah, you don't have proof that this will happen.
Yeah, that's really a good example, because I know that you said before, like contingency fuel, for example. I know that pilots, want to have a comfortable margin, and it makes a really big difference, doesn't it, on the weight of the aircraft and how much fuel you're tankering around. If you don't need all that contingency fuel, that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. And actually, statistical contingency is a great idea to implement, because it not only on the majority of flights lower the amount of contingency fuel you take, but on the routes where actual contingency fuel you have to take is higher, because, for example, usual bad weather on the route or something like that, calculating statistical contingency fuel will tell you that you have to take more fuel, yeah, and it may be even more than whatever 5% or a different policy.
So there's a lot of hidden things there, and by using data, you're able to dig in deeper and find out exactly where the optimizations are. Hey, I used to work for one of the manufacturers in the past. I used to work for Boeing, and Boeing used to help people do fuel efficiency as well. And one of the things that I learned during that time is many times people are looking at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 key factors in fuel efficiency. But I understood, during that time, that it's many, many different factors that have to be considered in order to be able to create the full optimization. So I can see what you're doing. You're creating, you're looking at policies and procedures and data and lots of different ways to be able to optimize the world and the environment. Hey, listen, before we go on to one of my next favorite topics, I wanted to recognize a few more people that are coming on board with us. If you have any questions, we would love to be able to hear from you. I see we have Matt Churches. He's been a regular follower last year, in the past. Thanks for joining us, Matt. And we have Karina Mercado, who's joined us from Seattle. Thanks for joining us, Karina. And if anybody else, if you're watching out there, throw your name and where you're from, and we'll be happy to recognize you. And also, if you have questions for the gentleman here, we would love to answer any questions that you have online. Hey, listen, I'm going to move to the next topic of conversation here, which is very, near and dear to me and important, is sustainability. And I want to talk a little bit about what that really means in aviation. So at the beginning, you said a little bit about, Emil, the importance of sustainability and how that relates to aviation. Can you tell us what StorkJet is doing to be able to help people to be more sustainable and more efficient in operating of aircraft today?
So this is one of the few examples in the basically whole of our civilization where optimizing costs and lowering fuel consumption also helps the environment. Yeah. So just by trying to optimize costs, lowering your fuel consumption, and flying as optimal as possible in every part of the operations, you also help the environment by lowering the emissions of the CO2. And for aviation, it's difficult to really lower the emission. Yeah, they are of course the new fuels, which are more or less sustainable. But electric is a dream. Yeah, this is not 20 years in the future or something. But we have to fly, and we have to fly with what we got. So at least we can do this as efficient as we can.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I know that different parts of the world have different initiatives and focus on different aspects of sustainability and carbon and CO2. And I think that's really good that you as a company are helping people to identify where they can reduce emissions and save carbon. I saw a video that you had that I thought was really very interesting and captured the heart of StorkJet and sustainability. And so I thought we would quickly play that video. It's only short, maybe 60 seconds long for those of you watching. Let's go ahead and play that video and let you guys take a look at the heart of StorkJet.
Nowadays, aviation plays a big role in our civilization's development, enabling us to travel across the world and to fast transport of goods. But we are all paying a significant price for that, which is 3% of global CO2 emission.
If we put this amount of CO2 in the 1 meter high square, its area would be larger than the entire Germany. According to forecasts, in 10 years, the aviation emissions will be almost 6% of the total CO2 emissions.
We cannot give up aviation, but we can make it less harmful and more efficient for the environment.
Our answer to that need is airlines' fuel efficiency software. So what we do is we take data from the aircraft, put it into our software, and with artificial intelligence, we optimize over 40 areas of airlines operations. With that, they reduce CO2 emissions, save fuel, and increase the profit.
Our mission is to accelerate the transition of aviation to be more ecological and sustainable by using modern technologies based on big data and AI.
It will take over 20 years before electric commercial aircraft appear, but our solution is available today.
In 2021, it was already 22,000 tons of fuel less,
which translates to over 15 million US dollars. That's almost 70,000 tons of CO2 less in the atmosphere thanks to our software.
To absorb such an amount of CO2, 10 million trees are needed. If we're talking about trees, did you know that we plant 5 new trees every new aircraft we handle? Well, now you know.
We have been operating for only a few years, but we already serve 1.7% of aviation market. With that in mind, we plan to serve 10% of aviation market by 2027. This will correspond to $108 million of savings.
And reducing CO2 emission by 486,000 tons per year.
StorkJet, best fuel efficiency software.
We are here for a reason.
We are here to save the planet now.
Well, gentlemen, congratulations on having a company that really focuses on sustainability. That's really important. So that's, I think that's really a great initiative. Hey, I know that at different parts of the world that people have different amounts or different levels of focus on sustainability. All right. And so we're going to talk about that in just a minute on why that's important, to people around the world and where people are paying attention to that. But in the meantime, I wanted to recognize a few more viewers, and then we have some questions that are out there. But first of all, I wanted to recognize one of the StorkJet team that's joined us. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. I have a regular follower here, Fuad Zaidi, who's with us. Thank you for joining us, today, Fuad. It's great to have you. And then we'll get to some questions later. But so let's come to that question of sustainability for a minute. So I know in different parts of the world, there's different levels of interest on sustainability. Now, I know in the European region, there's a great deal of focus on CO2 and carbon, and you're really the leader, in that topic around the world. And so what is it that you're doing to help people within that region to be successful in managing CO2 and their emissions?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think I have one interesting example on how this look like when it comes to, for example, engaging pilots to the fuel efficiency process. And what we see is that, for example, in Europe, we decided to engage pilots by showing them how much CO2 they emit less to the atmosphere. In some other regions, for example, more motivating is how much fuel you have saved or how much money you have saved. And what we see is that people really want to be eco. So they do care about the environment. And with dedicated application for pilots, we allow also them to check their scores, how they perform comparingly to their colleagues, and they can easily check how much fuel have I saved on each initiative, what should I focus on? Because, for example, pilots very often might focus on something which is not so important, and some other initiatives which bring like 5 times more savings are not touched by them. Yeah, so we do think that by informing them how much they can save CO2 emissions, they contribute also to be more sustainable.
Okay, so not only from a financial perspective of improving, the fuel efficiency, all right, and meeting targets that companies have in reducing CO2, but you're also saying that there's a motivating factor that comes from pilots, wanting to be more responsible, and also I've also seen pilots that have a bit of a competitive, comparison to one another. I'm the one who's been able to save more. I'm more sustainable than others. And so I've seen some competition that's occurred there. Hey, I have a picture of a pilot sitting in a cockpit here in one of my photographs I have here. Oh, there it is. Oh, wait a minute. That's me sitting in a 777 right there. That looks like that pilot was happy about how much CO2 he saved in that flight. That's probably what happened there, I'm thinking. Don't you think?
It's got to be this.
Yeah, it's got to be that. It's got to be that. So definitely, I think that there's motivation that comes from, giving people information. Listen, I like to have information about what's happening. I want to know what's happening when I'm flying the airplane. I want to know what's happening when I'm driving a car. I want to know what's happening around me and to be able to create the most efficient kind of an environment. So I think the fact that you're focusing on that, is really a good thing. Hey, listen, I want to go to another segment here in a second, but before I do that, I wanted to ask you is that if you were to accentuate some of the features that StorkJet has in your applications that help people to be able to analyze and to do better in sustainability and reducing CO2, what are some of the key features that you do that might be different than what other companies are doing?
So with artificial intelligence, we can show to the airline what are the real saving potential values. So we do not use assumptions, but we simulate every second of the flight, every different scenarios, and we can compare fuel usage between these scenarios. So with our software, airlines know exactly how much they saved or how much they can still save. And I think that this is the key feature that what is unique about StorkJet.
Different scenarios. So comparing different data points, different procedures, different operations, and different scenarios. That's very interesting. Hey, we have another question down at the bottom of my screen here right now. And let me throw that up and see if you guys can't maybe answer that. It says, what is the premium metric that your clients are focused on when engaging your services? Is it CO2 emissions or is it cost savings? What's the core thing that most operators are looking at today?
So there always needs to be a business case to buy the software. Yeah. So at first it is all about the money, but reduction of CO2 emissions, this is also a great addition to what we do, both for the airlines and both for us as a company.
So business case, it really boils down to, if you're going to save fuel, what's the best way to get there? And do you use tools? Do you change operations? But I hear what you're saying. So it boils down to a business case. And one of the added values we have is, can you develop a business case from the sustainability aspect of it as well? Okay, there's no name on that question, but thanks for asking the question. I appreciate that very much. All right, hey, listen, let me shift to one more segment here. Can you give us a bit of a business case where maybe someone has focused on fuel or CO2 reductions? Tell us a little bit about a business case and what some of the outcomes have been, Peter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So on average, the cost of this software that we have is 6% of savings that airlines achieved. These numbers build clear business case for the following airlines that we start discussions with. And to give you some precise numbers, for example, when we started cooperation with LOT Polish Airlines, they implemented contingency fuel policies so that they reduced it from 5% to 3% on Dreamliner fleet. And with that, they saved during the first year $2 million. And these are the savings only that comes from one initiative. And in Fuel Pro, we optimize 44 of them. Looking, for example, at another customer from Mexico, Volaris, they on proper fuel planning saved in the last year nearly $7 million.
Is there, Peter? Is there an area that you focus on specifically, or is it really different for every single operator?
Yeah, it's totally different for every single operator. So, for example, one operator might be perfect in flight profile optimization, but the other might be not so good. And so what we usually do is at the very beginning of cooperation, we perform detailed analysis across all the initiatives, and we inform them that, hey, over here, you should focus on this. You should focus here on flight planning, on contingency or discretionary. Over here, you can, for example, inform pilots to use more efficiently takeoff or landing flaps, and so on. Yeah, so it really depends on airline, on region, on pilots' behaviors, and so on. That is why we try to take a look on all the areas, not only on flight optimization, for example.
Yeah, very good. So I can see that. I knew the answer was going to be that everybody is different because there are no two operations that are the same anywhere around the world. And so I can see that by looking at a broad spectrum of factors that are affected, that you can look at which factors make the biggest difference in that particular operation really that you're looking at. So we have one more question that came in from my business associate, Fuad. Let's put that up there and see what he has and see if we can answer that question. It says here, did StorkJet algorithmic system consider flight level and wind speeds to optimize each of the flight phases and routes in a flight profile?
Yeah, so we have our own optimizations, which take into account weather on each of the flight level, taking into account both data from the avionics of the aircraft, as well as weather forecasts. And we optimize both speeds and altitudes to be really, really precise.
Okay, well, good. Good, very good. If anybody else has any questions out there, feel free to put the questions in, and we'll see if we can find a hard one that maybe our data scientist Emil can't answer or something like that, maybe, just to make it more difficult, So, yeah. So, okay, very good. Well, listen, I wanted to ask you a couple of other final questions. Listen, one of the reasons that I do these live broadcasts is I want to bring expertise, to our community, to our aviation community. I have been passionate my entire career about aviation, and I've been in aviation my entire career. I've been passionate about digital, and putting the two together is a way that we can help aviation to be successful. And so I want to thank you as a company, StorkJet, for your contributions in helping aviation to be successful, because right now we're looking at difficult times where we have to operate more efficiently, and we're having to operate with less aircraft, higher load factors. I saw in the U.S. Over the holiday season, there were thousands and thousands of flights that were canceled, and that makes a big impact on revenue. And so every little piece that we do in the industry makes a big difference in creating profitability, because we want aviation to be successful. So thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. Hey, if people want to reach out to you and continue this conversation, which I encourage everyone to do, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay. Yeah. So frankly speaking, on our website, there are a lot of buttons: request a demo or just contact us.
Okay.
So feel free to visit our website, or just email us at info@storkjet.com, and we will be happy to have a conversation with you just to discuss what are your challenges in your airline specific operations and how we could help you.
Good, good. And could you put Peter's name up on the screen there for us, please? I also find that many times people want to reach out to a person specifically. And so if you want to get in touch with Peter, you can do that on his LinkedIn. That's my suggestion, is look up that name on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to him and message him directly. And I'm sure that he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I see we have another question that's come up from one of our viewers, Mohammed Alamouche. If we could just put that up on the screen real quick, see if we can't help him and answer that. What are the aspects being considered in optimization? Is it only a tool for flight ops? How about maintenance related aspects? So can you do your best to maybe answer that question for Mohammed?
Yeah, so we try to take all of the stakeholders in fuel efficiency into the work of improving the efficiency, basically, and maintenance is an important part of that. So for our main software, the fuel efficiency software, maybe it's a bit less important, but we also have advanced aircraft performance monitoring software, which show you what is the actual deterioration of your aircraft, how much fuel it burns more than the aircraft that enter into service. And also it provides you with basically everything that flight recorders are recording. Every parameter, every engine parameter, every avionic parameters is presented in a nice way on a chart. So this helps some maintenance departments to see, for example, if we had a case where TAT probe wasn't behaved very good, and then the customer realized it thanks to our software and corrected this.
Oh, very interesting. So you can identify potential maintenance problems as well. Are you also able to track increased drag on the aircraft over time?
Yeah. So while most of the inefficiencies comes from the engines, of course, we also monitor the increased drag, and this is both through the airframe deterioration as some KPI abstract one, but also through for example, what is the neutral position of ailerons during cruise flight. And if you see if they are going, for example, left aileron is going up, right aileron is going down, and you're flying straight, it means that you have some kind of drag on one side of the aircraft. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So maintenance does play into, efficiency, of course. So that was a good question, Mohammed. Thank you for asking that. I really appreciate that. Hey, gentlemen, I want to ask you two last final questions, if I could, one to you each individually. Listen, Emil, this one's for you. There's been a big increase in the availability of computing and computing capacity these days, all right? What is exciting to you about having that kind of computing power available today?
So the great thing is, because sometimes I'm just sitting there looking at some data, yeah, and I think of something, I have some idea, want to know this, I can just put the computations on my server, and I will know in half an hour or something. And even 10 years ago, so when I was working at CERN, I had to wait for 1 week or something.
Yeah.
So it's really great to have the answers really quick. You can try a lot of different ideas. Most of them will be bad, but it's easier to find the good ones.
Yeah, see, it's an exciting time in industry today because we have had such a massive increase in computing power and capacity that it makes it possible for you to be able, as a data scientist, to combine those ideas and that processing and come up with answers like never before. And so if you're sitting out there today and if you're thinking we've done this before or we're doing it manually, you should really think about reconsidering what you do today, because it is different today than what it was just a few years ago, and so I'm excited about that as well. That's why I asked you that question. Peter, I also have a question for you. Is that with all the different challenges that we have available to us today in the industry, in the aviation industry, what's the most exciting to you today?
I think that for us, the biggest challenge that we faced was to enter aviation market as a company. Because first question is always, with whom do you work with? For example, airlines data are very sensitive data. So airlines do not want to share data with some startups. So our main goal, our main challenge that we faced, and we successfully overcame this, was to just enter this market and start offer services for airlines, for big players as a just startup.
Good. Now, I know that you're one of the co-founders of the company. Is that, how did you go about doing that? How, just for the people listening that want to maybe enter into a new business anywhere in aviation and help create success like you are, how did you create that relationship and get that first customer?
So we started with some smaller analysis. So we needed to gain trust from the airlines. So we started with some smaller fuel efficiency analysis. And based on this, we also developed the software because we saw that there are plenty areas of optimization. We saw that we can automatize it. Yeah. So hey, well, why let's just build a software and do it for in a automatic way for not only one airline, two airlines, but for let's say even 10 or 20% of the aviation market. So because this is our goal for the following years.
Very good. Well, listen, congratulations, on what you're doing. And to me, the most exciting part is that we have an opportunity, in industry today to be able to make a difference. Okay. And making a difference for me is leveraging digital and helping aviation to be successful, because really aviation is a passion of mine. And so as a company, I want to thank you. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. And if any of you out there would like to follow up with me at Digital Aircraft, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn page. Here you can send me a comment. You can reach out at our website as well. But I want to thank you for joining us today. And before you go, let me just tell you real quick is that we do have a lot of exciting things things coming up this month. I have a series coming up starting next week where we're going to be focusing on digital and how it's being applied across industries and how we're leveraging sustainability as well, between different industries. And so what I'm trying to say is that we don't need to do this on our own. We need to reach out to people that are experts in the industry, experts like the people at StorkJet, people at other companies that have been successful, and learn from the successes of our community that we've built around us to be able to create success. And so I encourage you to reach out to StorkJet, reach out to Emil and Peter, and see if they can help you with your problems that you're having. And maybe they'll just give you some ideas on how you can be successful, in your operations. But that's one of the things I'm really big about is let's have a conversation, let's help one another, and let's join in the success as we move forward, creating recovery in aviation and continue to grow in aviation. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate you being on the live broadcast today.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much, Mark. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and thanks for all the warm words. It really motivates us to work even harder.
Very good. Very good. And thank you, Emil. All right. So everybody, fair winds and following seas to you. And I want to thank you for joining us today. Have a great day. We'll see you next week at the same time.